am writing for 2 years for that paper. You never approached me once.
I did. I read it.
You never approached me once to have a discussion about whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. I did actually consult with an NUJ representative in Ulster House who said there were quite a number of members of the NUJ working for the Daily Mail and that there was no problem in writing for it. And I suggest this to you, Seamus, instead of coming to a meeting and then using a cynical attack as a political weapon, organise a meeting between me and the 10 members, a secret private meeting, and we will see how we can advance the interests of trade unionists and workers' rights in society. And by the way, to be honest, there is scarcely much difference between the Daily Mail and the Bean Baron and the others who have been hammering workers' rights for the last decade and a half. So why don't we orchestrate a movement against the whole lot of them to protect the rights of print and journalists generally. Now, the question about the Charter of Rights, I'm not going to go over it again. There are absolutely loads of rights, of course, but the rights are limited. That's where the problem exists. All I'm asking people to do is go away, go to your computers or get someone else to do it. Look at Article 52 of the Charter, paragraphs 1 to 7, 1 and 7 especially. Look at the official explanation to Article 52 and look at the new Article 6 of the Treaty on European Union, the first treaty. It's about 10 minutes work. And judge for yourself whether those articles completely undermine, in fact, all the glorious rights that are there in name and in writing, but don't mean anything when you look at the small print. This is the small print. Now, the question then has been brought up of the market, and we hear this thing about the social market. There is no such thing as a social market. Markets don't have consciences. They don't do social. I appreciate that the comrade who came in from Britain is well intentioned and says we have to tame the market. And trade union leaders in Ireland and in Europe have said that for the last 20 years. The trade union leaders asked the same, how can we tame the market? But they haven't tamed the market. They have been tamed by the market. Because they accept, unfortunately, the market, and so does the Labour Party. And if you do that, then you accept the domination of the capitalist class to force their agenda, because they own and control the levers. Now, call me simple, but that's what James Connolly and Jim Larkin and the men and women who founded the trade union movement believe also. I say instead of relying on charters with small prints that undermine those charters, let's go back to basic. And let's reorganise the trade union movement from the ground up. And let's have a real campaign of organisation and of mobilisation. Because the working class and working people are the strongest power in society, if only that power is mobilised and organised and given a proper leadership. And the last point, Chairwoman and friends, is this. The European Union, says Blair Horan, is a peace project. The European Union is not a peace project. The European Union wants to equip itself with a heightened military capability and an expanded armaments industry and with a new foreign policy instruments so that it can go onto the world stage with the same clout and strength as the United States, China and other world powers. Because they know in the decades ahead they will be jockeying with each other for markets and for raw materials and for political influence to guarantee those markets and those raw materials. And they want the military clout to give them the added influence that it has given, for example, the United States for decades over the past period of time. What? And all you need to do to debunk the idea of a peace project is the fact that the European Defence Agency is given a treaty status. The European Defence Agency is to organise the armaments industry. It's to create a competitive market in armaments. Look at its website. It's to promote research and development into defence equipment, i.e. armaments. Is that research and development to turn tanks into baby strollers so they won't do any damage? I doubt it very much. The fact is, at the present time, the European Union, its member states, 5 of its bigger member states, the more powerful military states, account for 1/3 of all armament sales internationally. And what that means in practice is, in recent times, they have flogged thousands of euro worth of Eurofighters and other weaponry of death to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, one of the most vicious, anti-democratic, anti-women, anti-workers regime on the face of the earth. And then they have flogged thousands or billions more to Pakistan on the one side and China on the other, where tens of millions of people starve and live in destitution, and whose regimes are at each other's throats. What kind of a peace project is arming people to aggress each other and against the background of this poverty and destitution that belows Saudi Arabia? And that shows the limitation of words. Because very early on in the Treaty on European Union, the Union is founded on the values of respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights. Wonderful, which we all thoroughly agree with. But how does that rate against selling thousands of euro of merchandise of debt to a country like Saudi Arabia? It utterly negates it. And what the European Defence Agency is to have more of the same, to create a bigger armaments market. You don't bring peace to the world by increasing the amount of armaments in it. You bring peace to the world by getting rid of armaments. That's how you get peace in the world. And what we want is a Europe. Yes, where the democratic, where the resources are democratically run, but particularly, to finish on the armaments industry, where the armaments industry is changed from being an industry creating horrific suffering and death to one where its talents and resources are used to resolve the problems of humanity, to create clean drinking water for the hundreds of millions of people, many of whom die from drinking polluted water at the present time, resolving the problems of our environment. That's what we want to see done with the armaments industry. But giving it a basis in the EU treaty and asking the Irish people to sign up to an intensification of armaments, that is far from being a peace project.